I am 75 years old, and for exactly 50 of those years, I was a liar. I didn't lie about my taxes or my marriage. I lied about what a meaningful life actually looked like. I spent half a century writing books, giving speeches, and checking off the boxes of a successful existence, all while carrying a quiet, hollow ache in my chest that I couldn't explain that I had the house. I had a career. I had the respect of my peers. And yet, I spent my nights staring at the ceiling, wondering when the real part of my life was finally going to start. I thought meaning was a destination I would eventually reach if I just worked hard enough, achieved enough, and became enough. But 10 years ago, something happened that stripped all of that away. I didn't lose my money, and I didn't lose my health. I lost something much more dangerous. My excuse is that I finally saw the one thing that most people, especially the ambitious ones, the ones trying so hard to make it, never realize until it's far too late to do anything differently. There is a specific trap that is currently draining the color out of your days, and the worst part is, you probably think this trap is your greatest strength. Most people figure this out on their deathbed, when the clock has run out. I figured it out at 65, and it changed the flavor of every cup of coffee, every conversation, and every sunset I've seen since by the time we finish this conversation. You're going to realize that the thing you're chasing isn't what you're actually looking for. You're going to understand why your best years might be passing you by while you're busy preparing for a future that doesn't exist. And I'm going to give you the one question I had to ask myself in the dark that finally made the ache stop, that I know exactly where you are right now, because I lived there for decades. You're tired, aren't you? Not the kind of tiredness that a weekend of sleep can fix. It's a deeper exhaustion. The kind that comes from performing a version of yourself that you think the world needs to see that you've done everything you were told to do. You've optimized your morning routine. You've set the goals. You've climbed the ladders. And from the outside, you look like you've got it figured out. Your friends admire you. Your family is proud of you. But when you're alone with your own thoughts, there's that nagging whisper. The one that says, is this it? Is this all there is? You've been treating your life like a rough draft. You're waiting for the real story to begin once you get the promotion, or once the kids are grown, or once you have a certain amount in your bank account. You are living in a perpetual state of until. I will be happy until. I will be present until. I will feel meaningful until. I call this the waiting room of life. You're sitting there, tapping your foot, looking at the door, waiting for your name to be called. You think that once you pass through that door, life will finally feel significant. But here is the brutal truth I learned after 75 years. There is no door. The waiting room is the room. I remember a woman I met at a book signing years ago. Let's call her Sarah. She was 42, incredibly successful, and she looked like she was vibrating with anxiety. She told me, I've spent 20 years building a life I don't have time to actually live. She was waiting for her real life to start while her actual life was happening in the car rides to meetings she didn't want to attend. That you're doing the same thing. You're measuring your worth by your output. You've mistaken being busy for being significant. You think that if you stop running, you'll be exposed as a fraud or, worse, as ordinary. But nobody told you that the meaning you're looking for isn't found in the big moments, the awards, the milestones, the grand achievements. Those are just snapshots. Meaning is found in the in-between. It's found in the parts of the day you're currently rushing through to get to the next thing. That I spent 50 years rushing through the morning coffee to get to the writing desk. I rushed through the dinner with my wife to get back to the research. I was so busy building a legacy that I forgot to build a life. Here is the tension you're feeling but haven't named yet. You are terrified that if you stop striving, you'll lose your edge. You think your dissatisfaction is the fuel that keeps you going. You're afraid that if you finally find meaning in the present, you'll become lazy or complacent, or you'll stop growing. But let me tell you what actually happens when you live that way for 75 years. You don't get ahead. You just get further away from yourself. That we build these elaborate stories to protect ourselves from the truth. We say, I'm doing this for my family, or I'm doing this because I want to make an impact. These are noble lies. They are the armor we wear to hide the fact that we are terrified of being just human. I watched a friend of mine, a brilliant editor named Jack, fall into this trap. Jack was obsessed with impact. He wanted to edit the books that changed the world. He worked 80-hour weeks. He missed his daughter's piano recitals. He forgot his own anniversary. He told himself it was all for the meaning, with a capital M. When he turned 70, he retired. He had edited the books. He had the impact. But when he sat down in his quiet living room, he realized he didn't know how to be a person without a deadline. He had plenty of meaning on his resume, but his actual days were empty. He had traded the presence of his daughter for the prestige of a stranger's bookshelf. He didn't have a meaningful life. He had a meaningful career and a hollow existence. The reason you're feeling that ache is because you are treating your time as a currency to be spent rather than a space to be inhabited. You are constantly spending today to buy a better tomorrow. But the market is rigged, my friend. Tomorrow never arrives. It's always today. There are two layers to this struggle. The first layer is the performance. This is what everyone sees. It's your work, your status, your curated life. This layer is exhausting because it requires constant maintenance. You have to keep winning to keep feeling relevant. The second layer, the one you're avoiding, is the presence. This is what happens when the lights go out. It's the quality of your own company. Most people hate this layer. They find it boring or uncomfortable, so they bury it under more performance. I spent decades running from the second layer. I thought that if I was an author, capital A, I didn't have to worry about being a man, small m. I thought my titles would protect me from the inherent vulnerability of just being alive. But at 65, I had a health scare. Not a heart attack, but a moment where my body simply refused to keep performing. I was forced to sit in a chair for 3 months and just be.no books. No speeches, no fans, just me and the birds in the garden. At first, I hated it. I felt like I was disappearing. I felt worthless. And that's when I realized the secret. My meaning had been tied to what I did, not who I was. And because what I did could be taken away, my meaning was always fragile. If your meaning depends on your success, you will live in constant fear. Because success is a fickle god. But if your meaning is found in something else, something that can't be taken away, everything changes. So, what is the secret? What did I learn in that garden that 50 years of writing couldn't teach me? It's this. Meaning is not something you achieve. It is something you bring. That we spend our lives looking for the meaning of life, as if it's a hidden treasure buried under a rock. We think if we find the right job, the right person, or the right purpose, we will finally have meaning. But life has no inherent meaning. Life is a blank canvas. You are the meaning. Meaning is the quality of attention you pay to your life. It is the click that happens when you stop treating the present as a corridor and start treating it as the destination. That I used to think that writing a bestseller was meaningful. Now, at 75, I realized that the most meaningful thing I did today was the way I looked at my grandson when he told me a story about a caterpillar. At that moment, I wasn't an author. I wasn't a success. I was just a man, fully present, witnessing the wonder of another human being. That is where the ache stops. The ache is caused by the gap between where you are and where you think you should be. When you arrive fully in the moment, the gap disappears. This is what I call the great shift. Most people live in the horizontal dimension. This is the line of time. Past, present, future. Achievement, progress, goal. It's the line of more. But there is also the vertical dimension. This is the depth of the moment. It's the now. It's the richness of the breath you're taking right now. Meaning lives in the vertical. You can be the most successful person on the horizontal line and still be completely empty in the vertical. Here is the question I had to ask myself that changed everything. If I never achieved another thing for the rest of my life, would this moment be enough? If the answer is no, you are in trouble. Because you are holding your own happiness hostage to a future that isn't guaranteed. When I finally opened the locked room of my own presence, I realized that I had been a stranger to my own life. I had been an observer, a narrator, a critic, but I hadn't been a participant. That I had been waiting for my life to look a certain way before I would allow myself to enjoy it. I was like a person at a beautiful feast who refuses to eat because the plates aren't the right color. The meaningful life is simply the life where you have stopped waiting. It is the life where you have realized that you are already in the room. There is nowhere to go. There is nothing to prove. There is only the breath, the light, and the people in front of you. The payoff to all of this is a freedom you've forgotten exists. It's the freedom of being ordinary. When you stop trying to be a great person, you finally have the energy to be a real person. And a real person is much more interesting, much more capable of love, and much more likely to actually change the world than a great person ever was. You didn't lose your path. You just mistook the map for the journey. That I realized that my best years weren't the ones where I was winning awards. They're the ones I'm living with right now, because I'm actually here to see them. But this leads us to a new problem. If meaning is found in the present, why is it so hard to stay there? Why do we keep running back to the waiting room, even when we know it's a trap? There is a very specific reason why your brain fights the present. There is a ghost in your system that craves the struggle. And until you name that ghost, you will keep sabotaging your own peace. That is what we have to resolve next. If this conversation made something click for you, subscribe. Every week, we go into the mechanics of why we stay stuck and what it actually takes to live a life that feels like yours. The next step in this journey is already waiting. The work continues. Let's keep going.